borderline comes in many different degrees, like I said in the previous video. And for some people it's harder than others. I thought that this week I would want to give my perception on how it is for me. So borderline, together with a lot of other diagnoses, I always feel split between two worlds. So I want to take part in, and at the same time I can't really be there. I want to be in a relationship, but at the same time I think I function better alone. I want to live on earth, and at the same time I have thoughts in my head of how I don't belong here. The borderline thing often comes with this duality of having a hard time feeling that you fit in the exact moment. This was much more present for me in the past. In the past there was a lot of self-harming thoughts and feelings, and for me the way that I would harm myself mostly would be just trying to drain myself so much that it feels like I was almost dying, or stop eating, or it was a feeling of being so full of feelings and everything that there was no more room for anything else. So there was not room for food, there was not room for anything that could fulfill me, because I was already so full of everything. A trap that many falls into is stimulants. So doing drugs, drinking alcohol, stuff that somehow remove you from feeling all of that of which you feel. Or in my case, removing you from feeling everybody around you, so that you only feel yourself. I did have a period with that as well many years ago, and I could see how one could get lost in that, because in some way that path was so simple. You could run away from everything, but in the morning when the whole party session was over, you were back to all the feelings you had before. For me, what helped me a lot with the borderline, with HDAD and hyperactivity, we're going to talk about this later in other videos, is focusing on how sensitive I am and how I function. It's focusing on eating in a form where I don't overstimulate myself. So for example, alcohol or a lot of sugar or a lot of salt and these things, I can feel how my brain goes. So I have had much view on what I put in my body. Also, I do spend a lot of time in forest and alone to rebalance my energies, to refine myself. And what I also realized was in the period where everything was at its highest and I felt the most cuckoo, the situation, I always search situations with adrenaline. I always search situations that would trigger this fight and flight, of which was already triggered within me, because that is what I know, that is where I feel home, but I do not feel safe there, right? So in time, I came to a part where I had to learn to be in situations where I didn't have to be in fight and flight, in situations where I could relax, in situations where things were more soft and easy, but it had to come in steps. Because if you take somebody who is in a constant state of fight and flight and put it into complete peace and harmony, this person will feel so wrong and want to run away. So it's a thing about becoming conscious of yourself and who you are, how you function, and step by step putting yourself in a situation that's less harmful, less stressful, less dangerous, and more refining your balance. I think for me, how to live with myself, the first thing is that they gave me all these diagnoses. and borderline being one of them, this is the one we talk about today, was to accept these stems. My second choice was that for me, medication was not an option. I didn't want to lower my feelings. I wanted to embrace them all and embrace myself. So getting to learn to know and accept myself the way that I am. And the very first step was that when I accepted me and was like, okay, doesn't matter how crazy I am, now I have it on papers, it's okay. I'm crazy, who cares? Like the moment that I came to that realization within myself, I think like maybe 35% of the whole craziness in my head balanced out. I felt less weird. I could be more with myself. I didn't have to run from me as I did before. Second part, I think it's to realize that you're a person, that no matter where you come from, what you've been through in this life, and which form and shape you have in this one, you are still a person and you function the way that you're supposed to. You just have to learn to navigate within that. So shifting my perception from being mental ill to being the person Elisa, who am I? So I got to get to know I'm constantly in the process of getting to know myself for whatever I am here as. I know that I'm super sensitive. I know that I am pretty smart in one form. But in the other form, there's things that I am really bad at. So I'm really bad at knowing which pair of shoes to put on. I'm really bad in knowing when to eat because I don't feel hunger. I am bad at small decisions. I cannot feel them. So there is stuff there for me. It's super difficult. There for other people is the most normal, logical thing in the world. But it doesn't function like that for me. And I think putting a lot of attention to the things that works and the things that create balance within my day-to-day life. I need movement. With movement, I create freedom. With movement, I balance my brain and it gives my hyperactivity, it balances it out. I feel my body, I feel present, I exist. I deal with all the traumas from this life. I looked into it. I got to understand it, forgive other people, forgiving myself. The forgiving myself part was a bit more tough. I will make another video about this if you guys want to hear about the how to forgive yourself part. Then write it in the comments below. I did that, and I'm challenging myself because often what has been hard is that one thing is what people see on the outside, another thing is how we feel on the inside, how I feel on the inside, and a third thing is the voices in my head telling me all the things that I do wrong and how I don't fit in, and all these echoes of lower vibrations that you constantly has to deal with in every daily situation where you are present with other people. In the beginning, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, I don't know, this was really hard, and it took a lot of energy to interact with others because having to deal with all these aspects at the same time, together with being a person who can feel the other person 100% but unable to identify with something long enough to make it my own, made it quite hard to be around people because I didn't know how to hold on to be me. Nowadays, as more I have dealt with what created the negative part of this, and as more I find the balance in accepting how I am and who I am and learning to set healthy boundaries, still working on that one though, as easier it becomes to just be, and as less these voices in my head are telling me bad stuff. In more and more situations, I'm able to just be there with people, with myself, just no thing in the head telling me that I don't belong and etc. So the way, if I should short this off, because we are already past the 10 minutes of living with borderline, is to get to know yourself, to get to know your boundaries, to get to know why you do what you do and when what is triggered. I had this thing where I push people away. And I know a lot of borderliners have this thing where they push people away when they come too close, and the first time you feel hurt, boom, you cut line, you block them, they're out of your life for life, right? And then you are hurting yourself. I had somebody asking what to do in this situation, so therefore I bring it up. So he asked, how do I deal with the thing where I cut people off and then I suffer afterward for cutting them off? I would say what I learned was that I learned to recognize the patterns I have. I learned to see when I normally would delete the person and tell them, okay, you're out of my life for life. But instead of reacting instantly in action, I allowed the feelings inside. I allowed the whole blocking down, pretending like they don't even exist. I don't even feel the person. He's dead to me kind of thing that happens with a blink of an eye. I would go for a walk. I will walk through the whole anger and everything of which follows because of this defense mechanism that comes up. And then I will reach a point where I can look beyond that and understand what was hurt inside of me. Where did I get scared? And at that point I have a choice. The choice is to either express, I feel hurt, I feel scared, or do what I always did, to cut the lines, poof, and suffer in silence. To be honest, I didn't really suffer in silence. So my advice to you would be, all of you, is to become more conscious about when you respond, when you react, and ask yourself why. First step is always to realize it, is to realize the defense mechanisms, to realize what comes up, the shift when you get scared, when the fight and flight is activated, and just sit with yourself with that long enough to get to know yourself in that reaction, but also behind that reaction. So you get to understand you get to understand how you function, what you respond on, what you react on. And from there, you get to choose what you want in your life and what you don't want in your life. I am not perfect in this yet. I, as I said, need to learn to set more healthy boundaries, working on that. But what I am is I'm extremely self-aware and extremely conscious of when I have reactions and why. When my brain runs overboard. I do have these days where everything is too much. I think all borderliners, everybody with anxiety or ADHD, whatever diagnosis, have these days, and I can literally feel like my brain it takes a loop and it starts rolling, and I can't stop it. I can't stop the voices, the anger, the judgment. I can't stop it. But what I can do is I can accept it for that moment and go with it. So what I do in a situation like that or a day like that is I choose that I'm gonna just go to the forest. I'm gonna run or walk a whole day and just allow all the feelings and the expressions to run through my system, even the suicide thoughts, because those do appear. All of it, like truly just be with it and let it flow through my system to the degree that there's nothing more left. Often I also do write to somebody that I trust to express my feelings, and somebody who knows that I have these waves of overload. So I would express how I feel that I don't want to live, or how I feel that I don't belong, or how I think that everything I touch explodes, you know. So I would express that, a place where I feel it is safe to express, a place where people know, okay, this is Elisa, she gets these loops, and on the other side of the loop, at the end of the day, she will smile and be happy. But for now, this is it. This is where she's at in this moment. This is how she feels, because every single moment that we as borderliners, as this is about borderline, we feel it as the only reality. So in that exact moment, that becomes my reality. But I have been with myself for so long that I know it's just for that moment. It's gonna do the role that it does. It's gonna flow with the feelings. It's gonna say all these horrible things. But I know that it's not me. And I know at the end of all the horrible stuff, there's this one small thing that triggered it. And when I see and understand that, I can act upon it or recognize it, so I am able to either change it, move away from it, or fully integrate that part that hurted me. So this became a long one. I think short version, how to live with borderline, is become aware of how you function fully. Become aware of when you are moved, and make a choice of becoming self-conscious. In self-conscious, in self-love, in watching this mirror of yourself, you grow so much, and you can get away from this whole borderline diagnosis, but learning to understand what is truly behind. And at the end of the day, maybe even step out of this fight and flight, constant fight and flight. I think I reached the point where in big amount of times I am capable of not being in fight and flight any longer. But it took a time, it took a while, and I must say it was weird in the beginning, because I thought that I would die. If you're not constant in fight and flight, life would be boring. No, then how do you feel it? But there's so many other feelings than fight and flight. There's love, there's passion, there's fun. You can find so many beautiful things in life when you fully dare to sit with it and be with it, whatever that may be. So this was it for today. Very open and honest video. Not so much of universal perception, more like the personal angle. Let me know how you feel about it. Let me know if this is an angle you will like, or you would more prefer just listening to the universal perception. And let me know if you have anything you would like us to dive into from whatever perception or questions. I am completely open to answer. And for the rest of it, I wish you people, you guys, your souls, a beautiful, beautiful weekend. And I'll see you soon.